everybody who does this a decent way has great coaches and has people smarter than them coaching with them. I mean, when I brought Brian on, I never talked to another infielder again because I didn't want to mess up anything he'd done. I had Robin Ventura as my bench coach and my hitting coach for 2 years before he went to the White Sox to be their head coach. When my dad was between the Angels and the Rockies, he was my pitching coach. So I always wanted to bring around people that I could learn from, and I think that's what most coaches that aren't afraid to show that they don't know everything do.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. You know, on this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
You know, you were more likely to play the next day with 3 lineouts than with a blooper and a couple bad ground balls, even though you're hitting 333 and I'm hitting 0-0-0. You know, the pitching stuff, we really focused on getting out in front. And if you made a good pitch to the first batter and he threw his barrel out there and got a base hit, you know, we did more about, did you throw the pitch where we asked you to throw the pitch? And we had that percentage rather than worrying about things that couldn't be controlled, even if you did everything right. So that's how we kind of mitigated failure a little bit.
Tonight, we have Brad Lachemann, former head coach at Arroyo Grande High School. And if you remember when we had Coach Madsen on, Coach Madsen used to coach with Brad Lachemann at Arroyo Grande. So there's the connection. You know, the thing with Coach Lachemann, which is really cool, is baseball is like a family affair for him. His father played in the major leagues as a pitcher and managed the California Angels from 1994 to 96. His uncle, Rene Lachemann, managed nearly 1,000 major league games over his career. And another uncle of his, Bill, coached in the Angels organization for decades. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. This is fantastic. I mean, you know, with a background like that and all of those people surrounding you that were high-level coaches, did you have any choice but to be a baseball coach?
It was kind of funny when I started coaching. I didn't really realize how much I had absorbed when I was a kid, and things would come up, especially when I was assistant coach, and things would come up and I'd be like, wait a second, I've heard somebody, I think I heard Rod Carew talk about hitting about something like that. Or, you know, I heard Robin Yount say something one time in the visitors dugout about approaching a ground ball. And so all of that stuff, whether I knew it or not, kind of came back to me as I started coaching, which was one of the really fun things about coaching.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it had to almost get into you by osmosis, right? You were around the game so much. What was your childhood like? I mean, you had to be, you know, at baseball stadiums constantly being in baseball, right?
Well, my dad was a roving minor league pitching instructor, and so our summer vacations were, my dad would take off a little bit earlier, and then when school would get out, we'd jump in a cab over camper truck, and my mom, my brother, and myself would meet up with him, and so we'd stay at KOA campgrounds close to the minor league teams, and that's what we did all summer. We just kind of cruised around and camped, and then about noon, my mom would drop us off at the field, and we'd shag fly balls in the outfield for BP, chase down home runs during the game to get like a quarter for a ball, you know, back from something from the snack bar. Bat boy, hang out. My favorite thing was hanging out in the bullpen and listening to the pitchers talk, because back then they were allowed to say a little more colorful things to the other team than they are now. That was my first 10 years or so, or 10 or 15 years. And then when he got to the Angels, I was a bat boy. I started 1 year as a bat boy in the home team, which was fun. Great. I mean, the guys that were there at that point, Wally Joyner, or first Rod Carew and Doug DeCince, Reggie Jackson, you know, and then they got the pitching staff in with McCaskill and Finley and Harvey and all those guys. It was just a great group of guys. But I did figure out after that, I moved over to the visitor side. So I got to see everybody else every 3 days, and that was a blast. I mean, the guys like Jimmy Rice and Robin Yount and Cal Ripken, these guys were just awesome guys. I mean, they were just normal guys that were really good baseball players. And they'd find out who my dad was, and they'd give me more grief than anybody else, but they also included me in a lot of stuff in pregame and stuff like that, talked to me and sat on the bench and talked to me in between innings and stuff like that. It was a very, very fun upbringing that I didn't realize how privileged I was, but I did soak in a lot of what was told to me.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind with that is you said that you were going around to the campgrounds and the minor league stadiums and stuff like that, following your dad around. Didn't you play Little League?
I did, but Little League was over by the summer. I'm trying to remember. I think we didn't have any team. No, Little League was over by the end of summer. I mean, I didn't do any, much of the extra stuff afterward because, we were playing. We'd get a Gatorade cup and wrap it up with athletic tape and, hit it with a broomstick handle out in the parking lot, waiting for my dad to get done with his charts and stuff. I mean, so everything ended for us. We'd play on a team, and then as soon as it was time to go, we left, and that's kind of how our baseball experience was.
Yeah. I mean, now that you mention it, now that I think about it, yeah, Little League pretty much ends when the school year ends, and it's not like it is nowadays where everybody's playing baseball constantly 12 months out of the year, which we can get into if you want, because actually, you know what? Let's jump into that a little bit because I did have it in my notes. And while we're there, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, kids playing baseball almost 12 months out of the year?
The throwing motion is one of the most unnatural motions in sports. And I really think that playing other sports, especially when they're young, is huge, right? You learn how to be a better teammate in football. You learn how to distribute in basketball. Soccer, every really good shortstop I ever had at Arroyo Grande High School was a stud soccer player when they were younger because it requires such good feet. And I just think there's something about it's baseball season. I get to play baseball rather than every year we're still playing baseball. We're still playing baseball. We're still playing baseball. And so, yeah, I think for those two things, especially the other skills that other sports will give you, but also looking forward to that baseball season rather than living it 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot on this show that I remember, when March came around as a kid, I was so excited to go play baseball again because I hadn't played since last summer.
Right.
And I think that is, especially kids nowadays, from the mental side of it, helps tremendously, I believe.
I think it's good for them mentally to play sports that are a little less failure based. I mean, you miss a layup in basketball, you just hustle down the court and play defense. And in baseball, if you miss a ground ball, it's short. That may be your last one of the day, and you just sit there and wear it out in front of everybody. It's just, the failure-based piece is, for me, it would be pretty tough to put a 9, 10, 11-year-old through 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, and they do it. They do it now.
No, absolutely.
It's really crazy. It's funny, I just had on a physical therapist who said that scientifically it shows that kids should not throw for 3 months continuously. So 3 months off, and he said, again, it's scientific. It's not something that he made up or he believes. The arm repairs itself, and, you got to get away. I agree with you. I mean, all of the other things, basketball, like you said, soccer, football, anything. I don't care if you go and you play ping pong. Go do something just to get away from the game.
Right.
So, yeah, let's stay on this. So, again, with the travel baseball, my biggest pet peeve with that is that they play way too many games and they don't practice enough. What's your thoughts?
The pitching piece is the part that bothers me the most about that. I think that even we just see it all the time. I don't understand why these guys allow them to pitch, 65 pitches on Friday and then come back and start on Sunday. It's you just can't trust people to do the right thing with their pitchers when it comes down to them worrying about their club winning and being able to post it on social media. It's the practice more than play thing. I don't know about that as much as, I feel like there's part of me that's like, if the kids just got together and played and no parents or coaches showed up, they might have fun also.
Yeah.
And most of my practices were very quick drill based, then moved right into a modified game that mirrored that piece of the game, because I think it's more fun, and you get players that are able to transfer that drill into the actual game doing it that way. I was pretty lucky. I didn't know I was lucky, but I was pretty lucky. I had to teach elementary PE for 14 years, and dealing with younger kids like that, first through third grade, you really have to modify things from a normal game for them to all be able to play it and enjoy it. And I kind of carried that into baseball, where, we'd just take a chunk of the game we were trying to learn and try and get as many people involved without letting the play stop, and then continue through after we did what we were focusing on, to try to get a game feel for it. But I definitely, it astounds me when these guys talk about what their coaches ask them to do in these weekend tournaments, where it's okay to throw 50 pitches and then come back 2 days later and start and throw 85. It's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you stories, and I have on the show, so I don't want to bore everybody, but
nothing should supersede the kids' health. That's the bottom line. End of story. Wins, losses. I mean, high school, travel, any of that stuff. We got knocked out of the playoffs one year by that Harvard Westlake team with Giolito and the other two guys on it. And they brought Giolito back from Friday to Tuesday, and he threw a CG against us, and he had surgery a couple weeks later. And it's unbelievable to me that anybody would ever put kids in that situation, because the kid thinks they're fine. I mean, I asked him, he said he was okay. Well, of course he said he was okay. You're supposed to be the adult in the room. You're supposed to be the adult in the room.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm okay, Coach. We talked about that also, too, about it, like a parent coming over and say, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. You could throw them.
They don't have, a lot of times they have very little perspective also, which is scary too. And it's, that's a whole, now we could do another one on that.
Well, believe me, it was on my list. I wanted to talk to you about that too.
We can talk about that if you want to.
We'll roll right into it. That's great. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't interact with my parents very much at the high school level, but when I was coaching travel ball, I interacted with the parents a lot. So talk to me about your feelings about dealing with parents.
Well, I was almost the exact opposite, because I coached my son's travel team, and it basically, I chose the people that I wanted to be on the team, and then we didn't really charge them that much. And so if they didn't like it, we just said, you don't need to come with us anymore. The high school thing, we learned over the years how to get out ahead in front of a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of high school coaches, have a lot of problems with parents because they don't get out in front of things and their communication is bad. A kid shouldn't get cut unless we do, he's part of the tryouts. Day one, hey, if we were cutting today, you probably wouldn't make it. You need to get better at this, this, and this. Day three, well, you still haven't passed up enough guys to be on the team. We're going to need to see something in the next 2 days. And then, Friday, like I said, Monday and Wednesday, you're just a little short here. If you want to work on that stuff and come back next year, that'd be great. But right now we don't have a spot for you. I mean, that's the kind of thing where he knows, the old, let's try out for 3 days and put a list on the door and just, blindside everybody. It just creates massive amounts of problems. So I think I got to a point with most of the parents that I was dealing with that because we got so far out in front of everything, we did contracts, we explained what the kids' role, we had starter role, we had support role, and then we had the role where you're just on the team because we think you're a great kid. You're probably not going to get to play too much unless we're up 10 or down 10. And the parents signed it and the kids signed it. And we had, that kind of thing going on. But I'm actually assistant athletic director now and try and help the coaches get out in front of as much as they can. Because in our particular area, we had a coach fired at another high school in the fall by a group of parents that got together. And then at that particular school, every sport in winter and spring had a group of parents trying to get rid of the coach for that sport because they had let it happen there rather than, we got to keep coaches. If they're willing to do this for what they can make, we've got to figure out a way to instruct them and evaluate them and get them moving to a better place, because nobody's a good coach their first year. Nobody is. No. You're underwater. You're just trying to breathe and make sure you have a lineup turned in and the field's ready and you have all the equipment there. I mean, baseball from that end is a completely different animal from everything else. But yeah, I mean, we need to, if you're willing to sign up and do it and you're doing it for the right reasons, we need to help you out. And so that's kind of what my role is now, is trying to support these coaches and trying to help them navigate through, doing something that a parent is going to be able to call the board on them for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that's a problem that is around, and I don't know. I mean, it breaks my heart when you just said that, when a bunch of parents who probably know nothing about the game, they know nothing about what it takes to be a coach, and just because you don't like what happened to you, you're going to go and get him fired. That's insane. But going back to what you said before about cutting players, when we cut, well, actually, when the team is selected, I sit down with every single player, everyone, whether you made it or you didn't, and explain to you why, because I want them to know. And again, it's all positive. It's, hey, listen, we're a little weak here, but if you work on that and you come back and, trying to help them. We're trying to help. We're cutting them, but we're trying to help them.
Yeah, and I try to explain to parents, this is the worst thing we do. Like, it's the most terrible thing. As a high school varsity coach, you are probably telling a kid they're never going to play baseball again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's brutal. And nobody wants to be that person, but you also have to make your team, and you can't travel 30, and and the more kids you have on your bench doing nothing, the more problems you have. So you kind of have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But it is sad. It's very sad.
It is. I mean, I never looked at it the way you just explained it, that, yeah, you might be telling that kid that his baseball days are over. I never looked at it like that, but yeah, that's so true. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that if you're going to cut a kid, it at least deserves an explanation of why. You don't just, like you said, put a sheet up on the wall and walk away from it. I at least, I don't know. It's, I don't know. Like I said, I just think the kid deserves an explanation, but whatever.
Yeah, no, well, they do. Everybody, they're human beings. They put their neck out there at a sport that's tough, and they haven't quit on it. I mean, I hear that, you hear that from non-baseball people. Well, it's too boring. No, baseball's just too hard for some people. It's really hard to fail. And so a lot of kids quit because it's hard, not because it's boring. And if a kid has the guts to come out and try out, they deserve at least 5 minutes of your time, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you mentioned, that word that we use all the time is failure in baseball. What do you do to help your players with failure?
Well, we did a lot of things. I coached for 10 years, and then I took a 4-year break, and then I came back for another 10. And a lot of the things, and I had kids in between, and my son was old enough to come to practice when I actually came back. And so he was around all the time, which makes you think about things a little bit. And I also kind of took a deep look at baseball and what we champion and what we don't give credit for. And so, I got to a point where, whether the baseball purists like it or not, if you hit a ground ball to the second baseman with a runner on second and nobody out, I put it down as a sacrifice. And we kind of had what we call an eagle batting average, or an eagle average. And we made it so, if you did things right, it affected your numbers in a positive way. And, we had a hard hit average rather than, a batting average. And so you were more likely to play the next day with 3 lineouts than with a blooper and a couple bad ground balls, even though you're hitting 333 and I'm hitting 000. The pitching stuff, we really focused on getting out in front of it. And if you made a good pitch to the first batter and he threw his barrel out there and got a base hit, we did more about, did you throw the pitch where we asked you to throw the pitch? And we had that percentage rather than worrying about things that couldn't be controlled, even if you did everything right. So that's how we kind of mitigated failure a little bit. We really got away from any kind of verbal. One of my big things that I don't like to hear coaches is scream out things that they're trying to portray that, hey, I taught you this and you didn't do it right, so it's not my fault. Like, what are we doing? All those kind of comments that come out of the dugout are just basically arrogant comments coming from a coach. And so we tried to cut all those away, and it was easy. Brian was back with me in my second stint, and he's great about that stuff. And so everything we did that was instructional, we tried to do from at least 5 feet away, or at most 5 feet away, and in a voice where nobody else could hear. Yeah. And we actually did that. I incorporated that with umpires too, which was really hard for me, but it made a huge difference. Yeah. And it just they're going to fail, right? Everybody's going to fail. We tried to give them credit when they failed correctly, and we also tried to make it so we were never showing them up when they did fail, even if it was incorrectly. And that hopefully took maybe a third of the failure, the tragic failure feeling out of it. You're still going to have it, and it's still. But I think the kids really enjoyed getting credit for doing things. All they had to do is what we asked. If they did the things what we asked, I mean, I was a big proponent of being late on a fastball and being on time on a breaking ball with 2 strikes. So if we got beat inside on a fastball, that was on me. That was not on them. And a lot of that was it too. And Brian's real big on that. It's my fault if you do it my way. And there's nothing wrong. You're not going to get pulled out of the lineup doing things wrong my way. So it was just a kind of an approach, basically, how we mitigated the failure.
Yeah, actually, Jelly and I spoke about that too. The importance of a coach understanding that, hey, that's on me.
Right.
I'm a human being just like you are, and I make mistakes and I fail just like you. And I live by that. I think it's very, very important to let your players know that, you make mistakes just like they do. And I just think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the post-game talks are you can tell them a lot of things you want to fix, but there's nothing wrong with saying, that guy I sent from third, I should have done a better job looking at that kid throw in between innings and known that we needed to get farther down the line before I sent. Anything that puts you in a human perspective where they don't think you're lording over them and just thinking you're much better than them. I heard you talk to Brian about being a coach and not being a teacher on campus. One of my favorite things about being a teacher on campus is I get to see him every day, and we get to talk in a non-baseball setting about baseball things or about life, and kind of, that's another way you kind of soften failure when you talk to me, joke a little bit about it, and then, get back after it the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like you mentioned, Brian and I talked about it because neither one of us are a teacher in the building. And yes, I believe that we have to work harder at building those personal relationships than somebody that's with them as much as a teacher would be. It's not easy.
As long as the teacher takes advantage of that situation. Some of them are terrible at it.
Yeah.
Well, that makes no sense to me. Why you would want to be a coach on campus and not be the coach that the kids want to eat lunch in your classroom, I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm on the same page with it. It doesn't make much sense to me either. I mean, if I would probably be the biggest kid out of all of them if I was in the school with them.
Absolutely.
But it's real. I believe it's really, really important. But getting back to the failure thing, so do you have any type of protocol? Like, in other words, shortstop boots a ball. Does he have any type of protocol that he has to run through to kind of try and flush that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the most effective thing we ever did was trying to get everybody else on the team to immediately pick him up, to immediately say, hey, pitcher look at him and go, get me next time, I got you. Anything where everybody on, I think the failure feeling is that you're on an island on a baseball field. You can't go back to the huddle. You can't go to the sideline. You're sitting out there and you can feel it. It's just like weight on you. Shortstop, boots a ground ball, run scores to tie the game late in the game, and you can just feel the weight on you. And whether it takes it all off or not, the guys on your team saying stuff to you and stuff coming out of the dugout, I don't like it, but I do like it. The so what, you coach against guys that do the so what next play, so what next play. I don't like the so what because that makes it seem like it's not important. But I also, think the next play is more important than the play you just missed. And I think a lot of those things. But I really think a good team culture, building it from day one, that hey, we're either going to fail or succeed with what happens the next play, not what just happened. So, that's the best thing we can do. And then, the next day, go over that, and do something that's going to incorporate what you felt he did wrong. Brian is really, really good at letting him know the reason. Like, hey, get your feet right. You had this, so it's not their fault. It's the fact that they didn't do the mechanics correctly, which I think takes some pressure off you as an individual. And it's like, okay, well, I missed that one, but I know that if I move my feet correctly and get extension, that I'll make the next play. And I think that's a good way to do it too, using fundamentals and not in a screaming verbal voice, but maybe in between innings going, hey, if you round that one and move through it, you're going to have a better chance of making that play.
Right. Yeah, and you had mentioned it before about, that 5 feet away thing. And when the players come in after the inning, if they're on defense and they're coming in, I'll come out of the dugout. And if I need to say something to somebody, I'll bring them right up in front of my face. Hey, bud, what happened there? Let's talk about it, for a couple of seconds, da-da-da-da-da. And that's it. Okay, let's go. Get ready to hit. Let's go.
And you always finish it with, I believe in you. You wouldn't be out there if I didn't believe in you. So,
yeah. I know it works for me. So.
Yeah. Well, if you build that kind of relationship from the start, it does. If it's not, it's just fluff. So you got to start from day one. It's got to be in all your actions, because teenagers, for some reason, if you go south one time, it takes a long time to get back. Yeah.
And if you treat them as a person first before the player and you get to know them, then it's easier to love them.
You have to, because you're not going to love them as a player all the time.
Right.
But you also, I think it's easier to, if you really try and understand what a high school kid is doing by putting themselves out there like that and allowing them to be in a position where they're not afraid to try as hard as they can for you, with the huge possibility that tomorrow at school, kids may tease them about things they did. And so now they're out there doing that for your program, to try and make your program better, to try and make everybody else around them better. And it gets really hard to not. It gets really hard to not love those kids for doing that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like I said, you're in a different situation. You see them around the school all day. So maybe that's why I found it to be difficult for me to do. And it took time. But
one of my favorite things about coaching here is it's a very small community. And so nobody leaves, because I think we had 300 days of weather between 67 and 72 degrees last year. So we're with no humidity, and so nobody leaves. And so I see these kids. I actually had kids of kids and everything like that, and it's that's the fun part when you see them. And even the ones you had a little trouble with, they come up and they go, I should have done this, or I should have done that. In fact, when Brian was on my staff, our pitching coach, our bench coach were both guys that played for me. When he went down to St. Joe's, he added another kid that played for me. And now, he's now the head coach. And so I have a lot of these people that have coached with me and played for me that are coaching in the area. And I think that is one of the things that I feel most proud of, is that somehow we made baseball fun enough that they wanted to stay in the game and give back once they got a chance.
Yeah.
That's something that makes you feel like you've done something right. You made it fun enough. You made this brutal game, brutal mental game, fun enough that somebody wanted to pass on what you taught them to somebody else. And we've been very lucky. I've been super lucky, like we talk, everybody who does this a decent way has great coaches and has people smarter than them coaching with them. I mean, when I brought Brian on, I never talked to another infielder again because I didn't want to mess up anything he'd done. I had Robin Ventura as my bench coach and my hitting coach for 2 years before he went to the White Sox to be their head coach. When my dad was between the Angels and the Rockies, he was my pitching coach. So I always wanted to bring around people that I could learn from, and I think that's what most coaches that aren't afraid to show that they don't know everything do.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more, because that's what I am doing, is I want to find the best coaches that I could find. To your point, I'm not a good infield guy, okay? So I want somebody that I could just say, here's the infielders, go do your thing. I'm going to be over here working with the pitchers and the outfielders. I want somebody like that, to your point, I don't have to watch them. I want somebody better than me.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I think that's the most fun way to coach, because then you can pop around. If you can get somebody for everywhere, you can pop around, listen to what they're saying, and then, you talk to them about it afterward and see where they're coming from. And it becomes, you learn something new at practice every day.
Yeah. We kind of did like what I do out of necessity. It's a small school. Their baseball program is not very big. Wound up with, I think, 14 kids on varsity and maybe 14 on JV. So there's not a lot of kids. But I have 4 coaches, 2 JV and an assistant coach for me. When we work out both teams together, so that there's 4 coaches out there and we're all doing our thing.
Right. Yeah, no, especially for drills like that, that's a better situation. So I think it's always better for the younger kids to at least do some stuff with the older kids, so they can see what they need to get to. And hopefully there's some of those younger kids that are pushing the older kids going, hey, if I don't keep getting better, this guy's going to pass me up, but I'm not going to get to play. So
yeah,
competition that I hate. I'm not a big football guy because a lot of the injuries and stuff like that, but the iron sharpens iron thing is true. It's a very true statement.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So, but yeah, that's all really, really good stuff. So let's get into a little bit about what you've been doing for USA Baseball, because I see that you were a coach for the 12U Open in 2019, and you were part of the task force last year.
Yeah, and I was slated to go to do a bunch of stuff in summer of 2020, and we got, obviously got shut down and everything. And then it's taken a little while to get back into it. And Brian's been a big catalyst for me being involved in it. My dad was very much involved in it, won a gold medal in Beijing, and then in the Pan Am Games. And he always spoke very highly of it. Obviously everybody says it, but it's very true. My dad said he's never been more proud than wearing USA across his chest on a jersey. My son went to a USA event in 2018, and I just the way they couple character with baseball and with patriotism just really fits right into what I think is really important. Once BMAD came on with me, one of the things we did before batting practice and then after the games was put up the flag and take it down. And he taught them how to take it down correctly. And it turned into a really neat thing that the kids really got into and understood and were proud to know how to do. So anytime USA Baseball asks me to do anything, I'm more than happy to do it. They recently named one of the new offices in the National Training Facility after my dad, which I thought was, really nice.
Congratulations. That's great.
Yeah, that was great. And, he's put so much time into baseball and to doing all that stuff with baseball and with USA Baseball. Is a really nice honor for him. And he was really proud. I mean, he's seen a lot of things, and it's a big accomplishment for him. So I'm proud of him for that. My son's actually interning for USA Baseball this summer. So I love the whole program. I love the fact that the kids are evaluated on on character as much as talent. If you're a bad teammate, you got no shot of making those teams. And like I said, hopefully I'm going to get a chance to do more of it. But I really enjoy coaching the USA stuff. And yeah, obviously anytime around Brian and Wes and Jelly, it's like a baseball vacation. You get smarter, you have fun, and it's a blast.
Just as long as Wes is not driving, right?
Right. Well, only if you don't want to get where you want to go. I mean, it's funny. You're just going to be 15 minutes late.
The thing that I love about USA baseball is, like you said, the character issue. Yeah, you're not going to make one of those teams if you're a bad teammate. I get it. But what I like about it is it's a true competition. And again, I'm going to refer to Chaffin because he had a quote that said that it's the best travel team in the country, USA baseball, something like that. Whereas nowadays with travel baseball, is all you need to do is give them a check and you're on the team. Okay? And USA baseball, no, there's a process. There is, hurdles you have to jump over to get to those teams and prove that you have the character, you have the skills, and you have the mental capacity to do it. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Once I thought about it, we were at breakfast with the 36 kids that made where they made it to where we were going to cut down to the 24. And, we're giving him pants, we're giving him shirts, we're giving him this, we're giving him that. And it popped into my head, and I looked at him and I go, hey, you guys, this is when you know that you're a good baseball player. When people start giving you stuff for free, your parents aren't buying it. Nobody's giving it. No sponsors are giving it to you. You're just good enough to make a team where they're giving you things. And it was funny. Wes was standing right next to me. He's like, wow, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, it's so much as just write a check and get a bunch of swag and go out and swing as hard as you can, throw as hard as you can, and then call it a great weekend. If you run into two balls offensively, or if you tap 70, 80, 90 on the gun, whatever your age is, and it's so much missing the point of what baseball can teach you. And I had a conversation with my dad one time, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I got my kid into this game. I go, it's so brutal. Just after one of those, 4 bullets, 0 for 4, and he gets a bullet hit at him as short, and he fumbles it a little bit and doesn't get the out of, all that stuff. And he goes, are you kidding? After going through this, everything else is going to be easy. He goes, everything in life is going to be easy if you can put yourself through this. And so that kind of refocused me too, that we're making, we're putting them in a situation. Yeah, it's tough, but everything afterwards going to be a little easier because they battled through this.
Yeah. And, again, it goes back to what we were saying before, is that failure part of it is if we can teach them how to put that behind us, okay, and move forward. I mean, let's face it. At work, if I make a mistake, again, which I do all the time, it happens. Mm-hmm. What do? I put it behind me, I fix it, and I move on to the next thing. That's it. If we can make them understand that, and baseball is a great, great avenue to be able to teach them that, we're making better people. Yeah.
And that's, we got to live here, so we might as well have great people coming out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too about USA baseball. All of the people that I've met from USA baseball over the years have been just fantastic human beings. I never met one guy involved with USA baseball that I turned around and said, "Wow, that guy's an idiot."
Yeah. Well, and I think Paul deserves a lot. Paul Seiler deserves a lot of credit for that, because I don't think he allows people in it that aren't in it for the right reasons. And I think he's really good at telling who those people are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really amazing. So, okay. So we talked about USA baseball. Yeah. This is something that I wanted to ask you. How important do you think it is for players to play like competition? Almost like what I was explaining before about, a kid throwing a no-hitter against a weak team. How important do you think it is that players play against like competition so that they develop better?
Yeah, I mean, we look at that a lot out here because we're tucked up in the Central Coast, and we are a small area, and we look at what's going on down in Orange County and stuff like that, where Olu's running out two guys throwing 100, and Notre Dame Sherman Oaks is running out two guys throwing 100, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that you can be the best guy in a small area and stop pushing yourself to get better, even when you're young. And we have a lot of kids in this area that are big kids that don't have great arm actions because they can throw wrong and do well enough to kind of dominate around here. Whereas down there, I think if you're not dominating, nobody's big enough to throw wrong and be good down in Southern California, and you're big Texas, Florida, those kind of places. And so, this is kind of, I'm going to skirt around a little bit. One of the things that I fought when I started here was our Little League programs, because they wanted to have kids pitch when they were 6 and 7 and things like that. I know, right? Just makes you drop your head. And so I went back to kind of the Little League piece or the elementary piece, and I thought, how can we modify this? So we got pitchers. I went through the Little League. We got pitchers throwing from flat ground until they were like 9 to keep the stress off the shoulder. We did some things in T-ball with the rag balls, so the kids weren't afraid of the ball, because the bottom line is it's not a great game if everybody on the field can't catch and throw. And so we tried to do small adjustments for that to make that happen so that we could keep kids involved and keep a good level of talent in the area, because we'd lose some talented kids that just hadn't had a bunch of practice or a bunch of being put into it so they knew how to do those things. We were trying to increase the talent level once they got to 9, once they got to 10, once they got to 11, that those kids hadn't quit and decided that I don't like baseball. I have to catch with my offhand. It's the only sport I have to do that with. That's hard. I have to hit, and some guy's throwing a rock at me, as hard as he can from 50 feet away. And if it hits me, it hurts. And so, as many of those things as we could take out of the equation just to keep a larger talent pool available to try and kind of raise our talent pool at the end. So to your question, my whole thought process was, let's try and increase the talent pool around here by not ostracizing kids to baseball. And I think it helped. We had a window where Little League bought in, and the kids that came out of that, we had a couple really good years when they went through that, and then they got to high school. But then, shockingly, there got to be a few parents involved in Little League that thought we weren't developing pitchers at 7 years old, so we had to get them on a mound. And we weren't developing catchers at 8, so we had to steal again, which it's just basically walk, steal, walk, steal, walk, okay, rotate. And so, but we did my little sample size where I had a little bit of influence, and we moved through with that before they went back to crazy. We did have some really good teams because we had kids that I think probably wouldn't have played, and they kept playing. So I would say that as a coach, in an area, all you're trying to do is have kids not feel they're good enough at any age, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, always feel like, hey, I got to keep getting better if I want to be good.
I mean, everything you just talked about, I loved. I mean, to, pitch, like you said, they're pitching them way too early. Using the rag balls so that the kids are not afraid of the ball, doing things to develop them. Like I say all the time, even like at 5 and 6 year old, they try and play quote unquote T-ball games, okay, with 5-year-old kids. All right. How about if we take those 5 and 6 year old kids and we teach them how to run? Okay, and we teach them how to move the right way. Forget about the hitting. Forget about the games. All that. We'll get to that later, but let's get them to move right first. And it's something that you can do. But again, what you just said, a lot of times, the parents get involved and it becomes a mess. And because the parents don't understand, they want games. I want to see my little Johnny playing in a game. Well, in the long run, whatever you're doing is hurting these kids.
Right, and it's just not a good game if everybody can't catch and throw. It's terrible. And so anything you can do that way. I mean, we got them to put 6 kids on a t-ball on each t-ball team, and all they did was play 4 infielders and a pitcher and a catcher, and they all, when the ball gets hit in the outfield, they all run out and grab it anyway. But then nobody's standing out in the outfield doing nothing. You hit 6 people and you switch. And so more people got to hit. They were switching sides. We didn't do the 12 kids bat around thing where people are falling asleep. And that was a great little adjustment that was easy to sell to parents who don't know any better. And at least it made it more fun. So nobody was standing around for an hour while the other team hit.
Yeah. 800 years ago when I coached my son's t-ball team, I remember people, parent coaches that were coaching their kids would come to the field and they would throw to the 5-6-year-old kids. And I'd go over to them and I would say, call me crazy, but what are you doing? And they're like, oh no, my boys, they're going to learn how to hit pitching. They got to learn how to hit pitching now. And I'm like, no, that's all you're doing is creating bad habits. Let's work them on the tee. Come on.
Right.
Just, again, those are the things that drive me nuts.
Well, it's, there's just a lot of people. It's funny to me. You wouldn't, these people wouldn't send their kids to school without like reading them a book or getting them ready to go to class, but they're more than willing to send them out to a baseball practice, a little league baseball practice, and never had played catch with them and never had swung a bat and never had done anything with them. And it's, that kind of setup for failure as a coach, you have to take those kids in like they've never done anything before.
Right.
If you don't want to scare them off.
Right.
And there's always going to be 2 or 3 kids that are good enough to go play. But you kind of have to do some things where you hopefully have a couple of coaches and you can separate them and do some things with the lower kids and some things with the upper kids to hopefully keep them all interested, because the interest level is the piece, right? As soon as they don't want to play anymore, you've lost a possibility to have a kid who matures and is part of your program.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, that's another, at the younger levels, that's a problem, because coaches will not run a practice the way it should be run. And to your point, they'll do like a BP will say, and the kids are standing there for like hours just doing nothing. And, it's like, with USA Baseball, go to USA Baseball's website, look up what you should be doing, and do it with the boys. It's not difficult.
No, there's no excuse anymore. There's so much on the website, on the internet now to do things right. I mean, and there's a lot of coaches that I follow on Facebook just to read the stuff that pops up with them every day, because it actually makes me at this point be a better teacher and a better like mentor of coaches. And it's, it's just something to put in your head. There's so much good stuff going on out there compared to when you and I started coaching. And we kind of had to fumble through it. And there were people that thought if you coached the way we like to coach, that you were an idiot. You were supposed to yell and scream at people, and that's how they're going to toughen them up and all that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, and now it's basically everything you need is there. You just have to not be afraid to try something new.
Yeah. And
try something hard. It's hard for a coach to not scream sometimes when something goes wrong. I mean, it is. You gotta, but if you're really in it for the right reasons, you figure out a way to make it happen.
Well, yeah, to your point, I mean, look, I can be fiery with the rest of them. I have my moments where, yes, there are things that'll tick me off, and, I will get on the team about it. But goes back to that love thing. They all know that I care about them. They all know, so that I could sit them down later and say, hey, guys, listen, I got upset, but this is why, because you guys are better than this and that, and I love you guys, and I'm just trying to light a fire under your ass to get you going, So yes, there is, like you said, there is some of it, but I can go back to when I first started coaching. I was an idiot. I had no idea what I was doing.
So there's going to be players, if they listen to this, they'll be like, that's not the guy I played for. I mean, I just tried to sell that it means a lot to me. It's very important to me. Everything I own is from baseball. Everything that has ever happened to me is because in some way or form, baseball paid for it. And so it's important to me to do everything right. I used to sell my first couple of years coaching. I used to try and sell. I'm not yelling at you. If I yell at you, it means I think you're good. Like if I saw you make an error and I didn't say anything to you, it'd be like I expected you to miss it. Oh, go ahead. So if I yell at you, it's because I think you're better than you're playing. And you just you get a little. I mean, I was 25, 24, I think, my first year coaching, and you're almost still playing in the dugout, right? You're in there, you're living and dying on every pitch, but you get older, you have kids, and things start to make more sense, and then you live in an area for long enough where you're like, okay, I need to try and make good humans, and I have a really good platform and a really captive audience on myself, because they have to be to kind of trick them into being good people.
You touched on it before when you mentioned about the post-game talk with the team. So believe it or not, I have more to say when we win than I do when we lose. Okay, so when we win, hey, Johnny, you threw a really good game. Hey, Petey, you really moved those runners, and all of the good stuff, and I'm building them up. Guys, we did a great job. I'm proud of you. See you in practice tomorrow, okay? When we lose, what I typically say is, hey, guys, how do you think we did? And they know. They'll come back and they'll say to me, Coach, we did this. And I say, all right, guys, we know what we did. Look, we're going to go to practice tomorrow. We're going to work on those things. We're going to get better, and we'll come back and get them next time. And that's my post-game talk when we lose. It takes 2 seconds.
Right.
Because, again, to your point, you don't want to beat them up.
No. And I got to a point where I finally realized that I ended up doing my post-game talk the next day at practice after losses, explaining to them that I was sorry what I said the day before. So I started doing, after our games, the first thing we did, we'd shake hands with the other team, and I sent them to the bleachers to thank anybody who came to watch them play. And then, so they had 5 minutes to do that. They'd come back together, beam out, and take them out to center field. We'd take down the flag, bring it in, then we'd clean up, and we'd talk the next day. And I felt like my post-game talks were much better than the next day before practice. I would shoot out texts that night and just, either pump people up or, just tell them what I thought they did well or stuff. But I was very much better with a couple hours to kind of breathe it in and kind of reevaluate everything. And I always thought that the people that came to watch appreciated the fact that I immediately, so they didn't have to wait for 2 hours for kids to clean up the field and everything. So we got that squared away. We made sure we thanked everybody who came to watch us play, and we took care of the flag, and then we cleaned up and maybe some individual talks during cleanup or whatever, but the whole group thing didn't happen until the next day.
Well, now you got to walk me through this, because I love what you just said about thanking the people that came to watch you play. So walk me through it. How did they do it? The game's over. Last pitch was thrown. You high-five the other team. What did they do?
Right. So they come over, and they just come over in a group, and I'd say I just send them into the bleachers, just immediately. Go thank your parents. Go thank any of the teachers. Go thank anybody that came to see you play. You got 5 minutes. Make sure everybody knows that you appreciate them being here. And so, and so we'd do that, and they'd trickle back quicker than 5 minutes. But if we had some strays, and we'd pull them back, and we'd just say, "Hey, flag time." And so Brian would take them out there, and then it got to a point where we'd elect somebody, or somebody would kind of take over the taking care of the flag piece, and they'd go out there, and while they were out there doing that, the coaches talked a little bit, and then obviously what nobody knows is that it takes another half hour to take care of the field after a baseball game. And so while the pitchers are raking the mound, our pitching coach is out there, having little conversations. The infielders are cleaning up the infield, getting the dirt off the grass and everything like that. And BMAD's walking around talking to them and stuff. And so, it's just a little more personal of an end game thing. And then the next day we'd sit down and talk about a lot about who we were playing next and what we wanted to do, and how the things that we maybe didn't do great would affect us against that team, and how the things we did really well were going to affect us, and any tweaks we were going to do offensively or defensively. We had really big scouting the other team and trying to find little plays. We did hidden ball tricks and stuff like that just to kind of make it fun. And our first and third plays and how we were going to defend them. And we got into a thing there where I was coaching against the same guys for 10, 15 years. And so we knew what they were going to run and we get ready for it. And that kind of stuff makes it really fun in season.
Sure.
Because the mundane of just, trying to be really good at the things that happen most of the time rather than switching over and going, okay, well, this may happen and this may happen. So let's make sure we're ready to do this, make sure we're ready to do that. But yeah, no, I was, and I can't take all the credit. My wife also said, we sit around here for like a half hour before the kids come over. It might work better if you just sent the kids over to thank everybody before they did everything else. So we did it a couple of times and it worked really well. So I guess once again, it's good to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Well, I was going to say, tell your wife that now you have a coach in New York that's going to be doing the same thing because
I think it's great.
Oh, forget about it. As soon as you said it, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Hey guys, go up there, thank everybody for coming and then give it. So, and with us, it actually even works better because believe it or not, we don't have a baseball field.
Oh,
yeah, we don't have a field. So I don't have a field to take care of. But again, there's a good side to it. We play our home games at the Yankees High A minor league ballpark. That's where we play.
Nice.
All turf field, and they rake the mound in the batter's box when we're done. They take care of all of that. So I have that time to send them up into the stands to say thank you very much. Awesome.
Yeah, and honestly, it diffuses parents being able to sit around for 20 minutes after a game and get and kind of collectively get heated about certain things too. Yeah. Seriously, I mean,
you're right.
It's the honest. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, because
they think I'm being nice by letting the kids come talk to them, and I'm just trying to get them to say good job and get out of here before they can get the pitchforks and torches out and start getting mad.
But it's true what you said, because really that's how all the problems start, because one parent starts chirping to the other and the other, he's right. And, next thing you know, you've got guys, like you said, with pitchforks running after you.
Exactly.
Oh, my God, that's funny stuff. But, okay, so we're coming up on an hour, okay?
Wow, that was fast.
Oh, my God. You know what, Brad? It goes, no matter who I'm talking to, I could sit here and I could talk for hours and hours and hours. Nobody would ever listen to my podcast because each show would be 3 hours long. But let's talk about a growth mindset, because I'm sure you have one, and I bet you that you want to talk about, or you want to let coaches know what that means and what they should be doing.
Growth mindset?
Yeah.
Okay, clarify. Because I have two thoughts on two different things, but go ahead. Tell me what you want to talk about.
1% better every day. How's that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Larry Lee, the head coach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, he gave me a little insight. And I think a lot of college coaches think that, one of the things they're always looking for is progression. Are you getting better? Like they see a kid his freshman year and they're like, great, we came out and saw him his freshman year. And then they see him his sophomore year. Is he any better? And so one of the things that we did, and this kind of ties back into practice and ties back into like kind of making it fun, is you can't let it get stale, right? Stale creates flatliner. You don't get any better. So we're trying to, instead of hitting 50, right. Okay. So we'll just step away from that. And the worst practice you've ever been to, right, is 50 ground balls, then take batting practice, 50 ground balls, guys throw a pen, but don't really get watched and everybody goes home. So what we tried to figure out, and Brian was really good at this, is making it fun to get better. So the growth mindset, our piece was, how are we going to make it so that they want to come and work without kind of really knowing they're working? And we did that, infielders specifically, we did that by doing things for 5 minutes. Like nothing ever lasted longer than that. And 5 minutes was even maybe a little long. Short lines, short groups, 3 to 5 minute bursts of what we wanted to do, then get them at a position, throw, pitch, or have a coach throw, run through those scenarios, move on to the next thing. But we also did it with strength too. We really bought into, not bench and curls, but lateral, explosive core. And our main focus was that if somebody came to see somebody the next year, they were going to see a better product, whether it was hustle, talk on the field, or if it was, and obviously just being a better baseball player. So a lot of our stuff we did was approach based, so that a sophomore who's going to be a junior looks at an at bat differently, so that they're going to be better even if they haven't had a massive growth spurt or anything like that. They're going to sit pitches, they're going to look at certain things. So if a coach came to watch them play, that they would see something different, something better, a progression of ability. So we got better. And the honest God truth, the whole thing is your 18-year-olds need to be really good to be successful. And if you have a program where your seniors are continually getting better, they naturally get stronger, they naturally get bigger. Every year, if we look back on it, every year that we were really good, it was because our seniors were really good, because they're just bigger and stronger. If you're relying on a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, you're not going to be able to compete with a group of seniors that are really good. And I just felt like we did things to continuously make the game fun, which helped us make them better. And a lot of it was in between the ear stuff and in the weight room stuff, yep, and fundamental stuff. So I would say growth mindset would be mental, physical, and fun, which is a weird thing to say about baseball.
Well, I tell you, I'm a big believer in the mental side of the game. Big believer. I think that that the mental side of the game is probably more important than how you do your bunt defenses, because I think that you could take a player who's really talented but mentally weak and he won't perform well, where you could take a kid who's marginal with a very strong mindset, he's going to do real good.
Yeah, and it's just stuff like, you get when your second baseman leans over your shortstop and is like, hey, this guy's a pull hitter, or whatever, and they do a little shift or they do something, or your shortstop looks at your outfielder and goes, hey, I played this guy against this guy in the summer, play deep, he pulls everything. You're like, oh my God, they're not just running out and doing what we tell them and then running back in. They're actually like looking around. And then when we really started hitting the ground running, we were giving the center fielder and the shortstop and second base, center fielder are getting the signs from the catcher, and we're late shifting on different pitches, and our runners on first base are getting the lead and they're peeking in, and when they can see breaking ball, they're going, and it almost took on a life of its own, because they wanted to do those little things. Like their favorite thing was coming in and talking about what the multiple signs were from the catcher. And the stuff that nobody sees, right? Like stuff that normal people don't understand at all. That's the stuff that makes baseball great.
Exactly. I agree. And
so some of that.
Yeah, I just did some tryouts. I want to put together 2 teams and practice 3 to 4 times a week, and maybe play a game on the weekend. Then practice all next week, maybe play a game on the weekend, because that's what I think makes players better. So anyway, I went through this whole tryout process, and the thing that really, really stuck out to me, how little they know, all of the kids, how little they actually know about the game. Like a stupid thing, we were timing the kids from home to first. Every single kid, I think, except for maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3, whatever, they all stepped right in the middle of the bag. Every single one of them, as they were running down first base. And I'm like, it doesn't get any more basic than that. And nobody taught them.
No. Well, there's no upside. There's no upside for those coaches. They don't think there's any upside for those coaches to do that. All they want them to do is swing as hard as they can and throw as hard as they can. And that's the ticket, right? That's the ticket to get in the D1 deal or the check or whatever. If you can throw 95, or if your exit velo is 100 off the bat or whatever. And so the little fun, like it's back to it. I mean, me and Brian Madsen, we spent like 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a practice one time having guys run down to first, break down, and then turn right shoulder in to go to second, as opposed to turning around to go to second. We timed it, and we did all this stuff, and kids probably thought we were crazy, but it's like all that little stuff. I learned, and I probably should have known, but I didn't. Wes, when we were doing one of the camp things at the 12U, when he has his guys come back to the bag, they step on a pickoff to first, they step with their right foot on the inside of the bag, so that if the first baseman has to reach for the ball, you shorten his ability to reach, so the ball may go by and go back there. And I had never even thought about that. It was just, it's just stuff like that. And you get around baseball people, and you get Madsen turning the other way to go to second. You got Wes coming into the bag, inside of the bag, and all these other things. And but I think the kids love that stuff. I think the kids love knowing that inside stuff, what they would consider like insider knowledge that makes them better.
They do. There's no doubt about it. I mean, stupid thing, going from second to third. Okay. So, the coach is yelling on the bag, on the bag, on the bag. Well, I work with my guys that when you hit that bag, you hit it with your left foot and you spin so that you pick up where the ball is. There's a way to do it. Okay. And when you run them through that, and you see the looks on their faces because they never heard it before, and they look at you like, wow, that's pretty cool, coach. I'm like, well,
Yeah, I know something about this game that everybody else doesn't, like normal people don't know.
Exactly.
I think that is really the fun part. When I watch a baseball game with people that don't watch a lot of baseball or whatever, and I'm with my wife, and she'll be like, I'm watching it real close, and they're like, how can you watch this? And she's like, oh God, if you want him to explain it to you, you can, but he's going to be telling you about why the guy set up low and inside on this pitch, and why the shortstop just stepped over one step, and then why this and that, and that could be, and then they're kind of intrigued, and it's almost like they need to do what Peyton Manning's doing with the Monday Night Football. They need to do a Sunday Night Baseball where there's 2 or 3 baseball guys talking about everything they see, and it would make people's head explode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, but that's the whole thing, right? I mean, I watch the game, and that's the way I look at it. I forgot who said it, but I think it might have been Trent Mongero. He said, you got to watch the game like you're playing it, not like you're a fan. And that's what makes it. If you do it that way, it makes the game really interesting.
Right.
I just wished at the major league level that they would bunt a little bit more and move runners a little bit more. But
probably be better to have one of those guys watching a college game and then talking like that, because man, I tell you what, the College World Series and the college game is incredible. It is really, really good baseball.
Yeah. I tape all of the College World Series. Actually, no, I tape every NCAA baseball game that comes on, on my TV gets taped, so that even during the winter, I'll go back to it and look and find a game. Oh, geez, I never watched this game, and I'll put it on and I'll watch it. I just love watching the college game.
It's a great game.
Yeah.
It surprises me that it doesn't sell better, I guess. But it's a little longer, and lengthwise, obviously the game from basketball, and I don't know, it doesn't bet as well as football, I guess. So those two things probably hurt it. But man, for a baseball person, college baseball is incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. But Brad, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. This was fantastic. I just enjoyed the conversation immensely.
No, I did too. It's great. I mean, it's just a message that needs to get out, and I appreciate you putting all this time in to get a lot of people that are like-minded to try and maybe talk people into doing it the right way.
Well, you know what? It's selfish. It's really, really selfish, because I enjoy talking to guys like you and, Brian Madsen and everybody that I've had on the show. And I've had everybody from, physical trainers to mental performance people to, I just did a show with a husband and wife author team. They wrote a book and they came on. So all of this stuff, doing this show, for me, this is like kid in a candy store.
I can see that. It's fun. It is fun. All the ones I've listened to, I can tell you're having a good time, but so are the other people that are talking to you. And
that's what I love. So, again, I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure meeting you, and we'll stay in touch. I got your number now. I can text you anytime I want.
Anytime you want, let me know.
Okay, Coach. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Another great conversation with Arroyo Grande High School's former head coach, Brad Lachemann. You know, what's pretty cool is that even though Coach Lachemann has, stopped coaching players, now in his role as assistant AD, you heard him say it, he said that he's using that role to actually help coaches get better, train coaches, which everybody out there knows is dear to my heart. So, you got to tip your hat to Coach Lachemann. I mean, we talked about his family background and how that played a role in him becoming a baseball coach and aided him in becoming the best coach that he could be. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Leave us a review, even sign up to be a guest. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, reach out to us on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and please drop us an email, clearingthebases@gmail.com. I love hearing from everyone out there. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you back here for the next episode. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.